Like, if we don't enjoy life, who's going to enjoy it for us?
Lea, is there something you are very passionate about?
Building my business.
And what is that business?
I help Dutch brands to connect with their German audience. Why not try those things?
Yeah.
Move to a different country,
Yeah.
start your own business, do a study in a different language.
Mm-hmm.
What can go wrong? Like, obviously, it's a lot harder. I became more Dutch by the day. While I became more Dutch, I also felt less German. And there was a time that I felt lost. Like, you don't know until you tried it. And if it's not what you thought it would be, or you don't like it, you can always switch.
Lea,
Right.
this won't be a surprise to you, but I start all my podcasts with the same question. And that question is, are you happy?
Generally speaking, I am. And there are days where I'm very happy, and then there are days where I'm less happy, obviously. But all in all, I'm very happy or satisfied with the life that I have and that I'm leading.
Do you think we should chase happiness?
No, I don't think that you can chase happiness or that you can ever catch happiness. It's in the very small moments in daily life and being grateful for what you have and what you are.
If you don't chase happiness, what do you then chase?
I think, or at least that's what I'm not trying to chase anything. I'm striving to be the best version of myself, and this version of myself is constantly changing. And I think I will never catch that person. I will never, but I don't know. I'm getting a glimpse of her, and yeah, in 5 years I might be the best version that I'm thinking of right now. But in that 5 years, the best version will change again, so I will never see her, but that's what I'm striving for.
In order to understand that growth and where you came from, tell me a little bit about your childhood. What was that like?
My childhood.
What was Lea like as a child?
Not that different from the person who I am now.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what I want to believe. Just start at the beginning. I was very active, very creative, very communicative child, and sometimes also a little problematic at times. But I still try to connect to her, so I still try to do the things that I liked when I was younger. Just recently I restarted painting because I loved it when I was younger. I would put on an audiobook or a story, and then I would listen to it for hours and draw or what do you say? Yeah, draw for hours.
Yep.
Those things.
You obviously come from a very small village in Germany. What was the sort of village life like? Because obviously you moved to the Netherlands. What was the reason to leave the village?
My stepfather and my mother broke up after I finished school. So because we were living in his house, we had to get out of the house. And I was 19 at the time, so not that young. But I decided to go to Hamburg because my father has been living there for the past 20 years. And I was constantly between those two words when I was growing up, because I grew up with my mother in a very small village, and I hated it. I really hated it. Just the people and their stereotypes and their limiting beliefs, and they were always so busy with the life of other people and not their own lives. And I hated it. And when there was the possibility to go to the city, I went there. And then I turned 20, and I really didn't know what I should do with my life. Honestly, like, I had absolutely no fucking clue. Like, nothing.
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of mini jobs, like handing out flyers, for instance, or I worked at cafes and restaurants just to pay the bills and get by.
Yep.
And one day I asked one of my coworkers, like, so what's your main job? Like, what do you do for a living? And she said, oh, that's my main job. Like, that's what I do.
Yeah.
And then I realized, okay, I never want to end up like this,
Yeah.
like for me personally. So I thought, okay, I want to study. Actually, I wanted to study in Hamburg, but my grades were not good enough, and I really didn't know how to enroll. So I just remembered that I had a presentation from a Dutch university at my old school. So I just thought, okay, why not go to the Netherlands? And then within 2 weeks, I was enrolled and moved. So
What did you end up choosing as a study?
International Applied Business Administration.
Why that? Why business?
I already had a few subjects in school that were business related. So I thought, oh, I know a little bit about business. I'll just go with that. I couldn't think of any other thing.
Yeah.
So I didn't really plan something. I just didn't know what to do. So I just thought, okay, that's better than nothing. And then I went with it.
In regards to the sort of not planning anything, do you think it could have been, looking back on it now, it's always easier said in hindsight, but looking back on it now, do you think there could have been any other way that you sort of, someone would have helped you figure that part out before you started studying, or is this just how it was meant to go?
I could have done a lot of things differently, for sure. But at that time in my life, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted from life. I didn't know my strength. I didn't know my weaknesses. I was just trying to do something just to get rolling. I don't know. I wouldn't say it was meant for me. I think there are always choices that you make. It's like a tree, you know. You start here and then your decisions bring you on different paths. So yeah.
I find it interesting that you used the word or phrase, I didn't know who I was. Recently you had a quite in-depth LinkedIn post in which you talk about always being in between worlds, partly in the German, partly in the Netherlands. Maybe explain what that post was. And
I think it's also important that I give a little bit of like more background information. I came to the Netherlands 7 years ago, and in the first year, half a year, I was always by myself, and then I started to make more friends, and all of those friends were Dutch, and there were no other Germans. I was just all by myself. My English wasn't very good at that time. My Dutch was basically non-existing. I learned the language and learned more about the culture. I started my minor in Dutch, so my Dutch improved, and I started working in the city here in the Netherlands, and I became more Dutch by the day. I'm still doing, actually, sometimes. I feel like there's so much still to discover. But while I became more Dutch, I also felt less German. And there was a time that I felt lost because I thought, hey, I'm not Dutch. There are still so many things that I don't know about, that I don't understand, that I can't say. Although my Dutch is so good, at this. Like, I'm very fluent. My pronunciation is very good. Sometimes people don't even recognize that I'm German until I tell them. But there are still, at my core, so many differences. But when I go back to Germany and when I'm with my German friends or family, I sometimes don't know what they're talking about. And sometimes it's hard for me to share what I experience here because it's different. And sometimes it's hard for me to even say things in German because I don't speak German as much anymore. So a lot of my vocabulary gets lost, or it's just not on top of mind. And that made me feel very alone and isolated for a long time. And it felt like nobody else would feel that pain, because it was for a long time a pain being alone by yourself, not being understood by others. But it's also very interesting because it makes me very unique, and I can what I also try to put in my business, I can be the bridge between the two cultures, and I can help others to take away that feeling of uncertainty and insecurity, getting to know a different culture, the language.
What caused the switch in thinking? Do you remember that? Was there even like one point where you're like, actually, this is a strength, not a weakness?
I talked with someone about it, and I was almost crying, and I realized that it's very, very deep inside of me. And it was a pain that I never really talked about, and I didn't want to even feel it. I just shoved it in like a little corner inside inside
Doesn't
myself.
exist.
If I don't talk about it, it's not there. But then I started talking about it and how it made me feel, and she was asking more and more questions about it, and that made me think, okay, but what if I change my perspective on this? What if I can turn that pain into power, and how can I use it for me and others?
I think a powerful, like, you make it sound very easy, but I don't think it's that easy.
No, it's not, because it's also something that has built up over years, and that it will always be a pain that I carry inside of me, because I will always be between the two worlds. Like, when I go back to Germany, I will never feel fully German again, and here I will always be the German.
Yeah.
And that can be fun, and I always try to teach my friends more about my culture, and also my clients. I also try to tell them, hey, we're celebrating this, or did you know about this little, I don't know, sweet or whatever. I try to really get to help them understand the German culture, but I will never be Dutch.
Yeah.
Like, never. So it will always be with me, and that's fine. But I have worked through it as far as I think, like, how do you say? Like,
It's a work in progress.
Yeah.
For this podcast, I have a guiding research hypothesis that passion gives purpose. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I know you, and I know your podcast, and I know that you often ask this question, and I was thinking about it, but passion, I think it's very purpose and passion are two very, very strong words, and I think it's hard, or can even be, if I have to choose one passion or one purpose, I couldn't even choose. So it's very hard for me to even put a finger on it, like what's passion, what's purpose. And I think those two can change. Like I have many passions, or is it then just interests? Or like what makes a passion and what makes purpose?
So I recently started coding some of these interviews that I've done so far, and occasionally you get indeed the feedback that they disagree with this statement, or that indeed often an example that is given is that they're, for example, very passionate about playing football.
Yeah.
And even though I'm doing more research in this topic, I'm coming to this conclusion that they mistake their passion for enjoyment.
Yeah.
So is that really passion? Like, are you really a passionate footballer? Or do you just enjoy playing football? And I think, at least from my first conversations there is like a distinction there between, something you're really passionate about. I feel like that, from my understanding, and that's also why I asked the question, of course, that comes from something deeper burning inside of you. And of course you can have things you are passionate about, like going on walks, or dogs, or whatever, like art, painting, for example.
Yeah.
But I feel like the moment that you, I think, could see yourself doing that as a career, or for me, as a career, that for me is when it switches to real passion. And purpose is like it's kind of like in a company where you have the vision and mission. The vision is almost unachievable, and that is the purpose. And your mission is more like something which you could achieve. You could become really passionate about, or you are really passionate about a topic. You're trying to do this, you're trying to achieve that. And that doesn't mean to say that needs to be forever. That can end.
Yeah.
That is my thoughts on it. But obviously I intend to figure out how other people feel about it. So maybe then a better question to break this down is there something you are very passionate about?
Building my business. If you put it like that, not just the fun parts, but also the bad parts, then it's definitely building my business.
And what is that business?
I help Dutch brands, especially fashion and lifestyle brands, to connect with their German audience by doing social media marketing and influencer marketing for them.
Why this sort of industry?
Because I like it the most.
Okay.
I like pretty things, and
yeah.
And the brands that I'm working with, they have very interesting missions to empower women, for example, and I love that. And
you only focus on female-driven brands, or
not
just
necessarily, but
coincidence?
those are my favorites.
Yeah, exactly. Are there downsides to chasing your passion?
Everything has a downside. And the downside of, you lose some people along the way. You have to make choices. You have to grow. You have to feel certain pains. You have to get through uncomfortable situations. You have to get up for yourself. But eventually, all those things help you to reach that goal and become, in a perfect world, it helps you become the person that you want to be.
Why do those downsides not throw you off chasing this passion?
Sometimes they do. I also have days where I just come home and cry and ask myself, why am I doing this? Like, I could just get a job somewhere and do the bare minimum and do that. But I know that would make me, it would bore me, and it wouldn't be for me. And as also, if I don't like how things are going with my own business, I am in charge. I can change it. And so I'm like, okay, if I want to reach a certain goal and it's not going how I want it to be or how I want it to go, well, what can I do differently? Who do I need to speak with? Who can help me with that?
It sounds like that's an extreme level of accountability that you hold to yourself.
Yeah.
Which is not a very common trait. Where does your sort of trait for holding yourself accountable come from then?
Well, it's not always working out with that. Like, obviously,
of course.
Something that I learned that really changed things for me. Everyone always says you have to be consistent. And that in my mind sounds like, okay, I need to have the perfect planning. I need to work out 5 times a week. I need to eat healthy 7 days a week. I need to drink 2 to 3 liters of water every day. Like, immediately, it's in my mind, it starts with lists and some things that I have to do. But to me, the key was more in, okay, if I can't do it today because I'm not feeling well, I'm too tired, I'm sick, whatever, I will do it another day, or at least if I can't work out 5 times a week, or at least I'm striving for 4 times a week, I can do 3 times a week. That's the best I can do. I always try to do my hundreds. I'm trying to give my 100%, whatever those 100% on those days look like. But this has helped me a lot not to expect everything from myself on every day.
Yeah.
Just
some days you don't have 100% to give.
Yeah. If that makes sense. Like, sometimes my mind goes like very quickly and then I'm like very fast.
I am. Is this is your first business, right?
Yeah.
What were sort of what was the conversion point that you decided, I'm going to do this? How did you sort of end up in entrepreneurship? When I had the Dutch minor, it was applied psychology, and one of the subjects that I had was coaching, and I really, really liked it. And I thought, oh, maybe coaching would be nice, would be super interesting to help other people, and so I contacted a coach here in the city and said, hey, I'm Lea, I'm really interested in what you do. Can we maybe have a coffee, and I would like to ask you some questions? And he said, sure thing, come over and we can talk. And then I went there and he said, okay, but if you want to be a coach and you want to coach business people, you have to know what it's like. You have to know about the struggles and, the problems. And I said, oh yeah, okay, cool. But, me, a business person. He said, but have you ever thought about it? And then we talked about it, and eventually I went home with the idea of starting this business, because he said, Lea, you're German, you speak Dutch, you like marketing. It's there. Why don't you start it? I was like, yeah, actually, you're right. Makes sense. Yeah.
So this is how I started. And I don't know, sometimes like the most significant choices in my life, I just did them. I didn't really think about it. I'm very impulsive. Also, some
make it frame it so negative, but it can be a good thing.
It's a good thing. Yeah. Sometimes not, but in the most significant choices that I made were very impulsive, and I'm very glad that I made those decisions. Like coming to the Netherlands within 2 weeks, like I moved. The English.
If I were to rephrase those same situations, but rather as the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Would that apply in this case, or would you say no? It's definitely more impulsive.
Least resistant. I don't know. I just have ideas and then I just do them. And I do think about them, but sometimes the consequences are not that I'm not that aware about the consequences, and I'm just like, yeah, why not try those things?
Yeah.
Move to a different country,
Yeah.
start your own business, do a study in a different language. What can go wrong? Like, obviously, it's a lot harder once I started. I was like, oh, I didn't really think this through, or I didn't think it would be that hard, but
Yeah. Especially the doing part is something which is super hard for a lot of people to get started. Do you have any advice then, as someone who seems to be a relatively easy doer? What is a good way to start doing more?
Well, there are certainly things that I'm also struggling with. And what I try to do is think about what can go wrong. Because mostly it's just money, and that I say that from a very privileged situation, but most of us here, they have family around them, or because when I started, I was still studying, and my father said, if something goes wrong, again, I'm very privileged, it's like, we got you. I wasn't making that much money from my service. What do you say, like bediening? Student job, thank you. So I had to, like, the bar wasn't that high.
Yeah.
Because I was still a student. I didn't have a family. I didn't have a mortgage to pay. All those things. I was just very, very low budget. So what can go wrong? And also...
Would you say then that particular timing is also the ideal time to start chasing something new?
No.
Why not?
Because maybe if there's more at stake, you give more. Because I was just,
so it depends on the person in that sense, fair.
Yeah, because I didn't have anything to lose. Yeah, okay, a little bit of money that I had on my, but still, in the beginning, in my first year, I was just working here and there and studying and a little bit of traveling.
Yeah.
So I didn't have much at stake. I wasn't very driven to make a lot of money. That came later. I think every situation has its own risks and opportunities that the person has to evaluate. So there's no right or wrong moment. There's never the right moment. There will never be the perfect moment to start a new business or opportunity.
I tend to agree with you. However, I do think there are better timings for trying out things.
For example?
So I do think in your 20s should be an ideal time to try a lot of things, especially if you don't really have a clue what you want to do. And I think, or to some extent, everybody has a certain idea, right? Like, you don't study business and then think, maybe I want to become a doctor. Like, that for that, it's probably too late. Or you have to be very ambitious. But in your 20s, I think it's ideal to, as said, try a bunch of things. If you work 6 months here, if you see it doesn't work or feel uncomfortable, move on. And you're less inclined, at least I think at that stage, to waste time at a place, because once you then get older, in your 30s, in your 40s, etc., you more likely have kids at that point, you more likely have a mortgage. It's not as easy to say, it's not for me anymore, I move on. And that's why I think that's just an easier time to experiment. It's not impossible to do it in your 30s or 40s, but I definitely think that's a more suitable time to do it. Obviously, the podcast is called The Quarter Life Crisis. Would you say you had a quarter life crisis?
No quarter life crisis.
Okay.
Few identity crises, but no quarter life crisis.
What's the difference, in your opinion, between identity crisis and quarter life crisis?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I was struggling with who I want to identify with, the Dutch or the German, until I realized that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But the quarter life crisis, I never struggled with what I want to become, or I never struggled with passion or purpose. I'm very easygoing, so to me, if I have an idea, I'm like, oh, this sounds nice, and then I try it, or I just don't do it. But I'm very, if I don't like a situation, I try to change it. I try to change the course.
Yeah.
And most of the time that works out.
Then as far as for those that don't have a clue and that are trying to figure out what they want to do you have advice there?
Yeah. I think it's very important to just start something and then see if you like it or not. Because I often see other people struggling with, what if I don't like it? But they don't really try it. Like, you don't know until you tried it. And if it's not what you thought it would be, or you don't like it, you can always switch. And there's no shame in that. And it's totally okay to find, maybe your passion. But you have to start somewhere. And it's not on your screen. It's in real life. It's doing, it's talking. And there will always be shitty situations. And you will feel uncomfortable sometimes. But it's also part of the experience. And it's necessary to grow.
It's been 2 months now since I last did my last podcast. And in that time, I've been thinking of interesting new questions that I can ask. So you're the first one I test this one with.
Shoot me. Shoot away.
If you only had 10 years left to live, what would you do with those 10 years?
10 years is still a long time.
Yeah, and that nicely takes out the traditional answers of, I travel the world.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
Which is fine, but that takes you like a year, maybe 2. I don't think you're going to do that for 10 years. That's what makes it such an interesting...
Okay, so my very first thought was that I wouldn't change much.
Okay.
Which...
It's positive.
It's very positive.
Yeah.
I would still work out, spend a lot of time with my family and friends, would still focus on my work, travel more probably. But all in all...
Pretty happy with the situation that you have?
Yeah. As I mentioned before, when you ask me if I'm happy, I'm very happy with my life. Like, obviously not every day, and that's fine, and that's even necessary, because if you don't have bad days, how do you know the
What's
good
a good
days?
day?
Yeah. But something that I've been focusing on more is gratitude. And a lot of people say that, and sometimes it sounds super cheesy, but it is true. If you're thankful for people in your life, or that you can even get up in the morning and feel good, you're healthy.
Yeah, it relates to the don't look up all the time.
True.
Thought. So it's at least very positive for you as a friend that you feel that way. So I'm happy for you.
Thanks.
You are also not unfamiliar to the other segment in the show in which there's a question in the jar and you get to pick one.
Yeah. Very interesting because you sent me a video recently where someone was picking my question.
Exactly.
So I'm very curious.
I hope I took yours out. That would be typical now.
Nele.
Nele.
Okay. What is your motto in life? Good question. I think my motto in life is enjoying life. I have on my wrist a little G.
Mm-hmm.
And in German I say, G steht für gönnen.
Mm-hmm.
So
she's German, so she'll get that.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, it's about enjoying life. And I like, when I look at my wrist, I see the G and I'm like, enjoy the moment, enjoy life. And I think, yeah, like if we don't enjoy life, who's going to enjoy it for us?
Mm-hmm.
And I always try to make my life most enjoyable.
Nice.
So very easygoing and very thankful for things.
That means we already reached the last question. And that is, what does the future hold for Lea?
We're planning on moving to Rotterdam in a couple of months.
Why Rotterdam?
We wanted to stay in the Netherlands, not going back to Germany. And when I came to Rotterdam, I instantly felt home. It reminded me of Hamburg. And I like the vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also a little bit bigger.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for owning it.
Yeah.
Fair, yeah.
And I want to focus more on my business, my health. I want to grow my business. I already have one intern at the moment, and also one freelancer that is helping me. And then I want to grow a team.
Mm-hmm. But you see yourself only working on this business idea for the coming time?
For at least another year, and then
let's see.
We'll see about it. Have different.
Be grateful for what you have now.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it for now, I guess.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, Lea. It was an awesome conversation. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.